UConn has as many wins in the national championship game than they have against Creighton over the since they've rejoined the Big East. It's just kind of crazy to think about.
You're listening to the Bluejay Breakdown.
Welcome back into Bluejay Breakdown. Anna and Jacob back alongside with you to talk some Creighton men's and women's basketball. Starting off with the men's, Jacob, some exciting times for the Bluejays, kind of changed everyone's perspective in the past few weeks of what this Bluejay team is capable of. They've won 6 of the last 7. What have been your main takeaways of this team and the run they're on?
I think main takeaways are just that this team's getting better, and it's getting to a point where they're finding multiple ways to win, and they're not necessarily just relying on Ryan Kalkbrenner and Stephen Ashworth to have monster games. They're finding ways to win when those guys have been good, not even great by their own standards that they've established. Jamiya Neal stepping up. We're starting to see the supporting cast produce more and more. And now we're seeing the team kind of taking care of business, doing a good job of when adversity hits, they're responding to it, and they're finding a way to respond to runs and to take control of games. And so that's kind of what we've seen over the last stretch here is just like typical Greg McDermott teams. This team's getting better.
Hey, I always say Greg McDermott will find a way to work with the talent he has. Whenever you think it's an off year, Greg McDermott is going to find a way to make that team capable. I want to talk about Ryan Kalkbrenner, Big East Player of the Week, AP National Player of the Week as well. What stood out about the big man? Not like we haven't seen his success already, but he seems to be on even more of a tear.
Yeah, just back-to-back double-doubles, average 18 points, 10 boards, 4 blocks, and 3 assists in Creighton's wins last week as we record this here on Thursday. Just in addition to the impact that he has defensively, which, the 4 blocks show some of that, but don't tell the full story. And that plus Creighton getting the win at UConn, I think all that the voters took notice of. And it's interesting that this is a week that he did it. Second Big East Player of the Week award. And I guess I didn't really look at who else did what around the country, but like by his own standard, he was solid offensively. He didn't have a great game on offense in either one, considering what he's done at times. So
he didn't drop 49.
Yes, he did establish the floor or the ceiling extremely high in the opening game this season. But I think it's just kind of a testament to what Creighton's been doing lately and the respect that people around the country have for him and the role that he plays for this team.
All right, well, let's dive into the UConn win, 68-63 victory on the road against defending national champions and Dan Hurley, a team that was down 10-2 in a very hostile environment. The Blue Jays found a way and held UConn off.
Yeah, and like I said, what this game showed is growth from previous road trips. And UConn was out without Liam McNeely, which is a huge piece for them. Obviously, Creighton was shorthanded as well, but McNeely is going to be back for UConn. So that's the difference there compared to Pop Isaacs. But even without him, that's still a tough place to win. And Creighton found a way to do it. And what happened is they answered every UConn run. They never let the Huskies go on an extended run to really take control of the game. And again, that shows growth, that shows maturity from the team with the ability to answer. And I mean, they were down 10-2 early in that game. And then Jamiya Neal took over, put the team on his back. They went on a 15-4 run to take the lead, and Jamiya had 12 of those points. Yeah, and he did it in every way possible. They found him for a layup on a cut to the basket, found him for a catch and shoot 3 from the wing, and then after that, he started creating his own. He blew by a solo ball for a dunk. He had a step back 3, and then he got to his mid range for a pull up as well during that run. So just kind of every single way you can do it, he did during that stretch when Creighton needed it most. And that's what we're starting to see is guys stepping up and making big plays when they need them to. And like I said, it was an okay game from Stephen Ashworth and Ryan Kalkbrenner offensively. Like throughout the game, it was kind of a little reminiscent of the Marquette game where those guys weren't making necessarily some plays early on that you kind of thought you needed them to make in this game. But the difference here is everybody else kind of did enough to keep Creighton afloat, and then those guys finished the game down the stretch. Creighton closed it on a 10-4 run, and after UConn took a 1-point lead, and Ashworth and Kalkbrenner accounted for all of those points.
On the TV broadcast, they let you get into the huddles with the team, and one of the things that Dan Hurley said was, "We let Neal get going."
Yeah.
And I think that is just so telling of how much of a different team this Blue Jay squad is when a guy outside of Kalkbrenner and Ashworth get going. Like this is a high caliber top 15 team in my mind when a guy like Jamiya Neal is going off as well.
Yeah, and career high 24 in this one. He played the full 40 minutes and just had a massive impact. He carried the team early on until the other guys could get going. I think the way that Greg put it is Jamiya carried us early, and then Steven and Ryan finished the game. And that's exactly what happened. And that is huge for this team to get more balanced offense, to get more contributions. Heck, Isaac Trout, second straight double-digit game, where hit a couple of threes, had a huge offensive rebound that led to points. The Stephen Ashworth three, I believe, they scored off that. Held his own defensively. And then you talk about the defense from Mason Miller and Jason Green. Might have been the difference in the game. They held Alex Caravan to 3 of 8 points on 3 of 12 shooting. And he only got 3 3-point attempts off. He's their best shooter. They run a lot of stuff for him. They did not let him get any clean looks. Jason blocked one of them. And the other 2 were contested, including the one at the end of the game that he shot over Ashworth. So that really, I mean, just the contributions from all over the place is how they were able to get this win. Obviously, Jamiya early, Steven and Ryan late. Defensively, the execution of the game plan was phenomenal from everybody who stepped foot on the court. And then particularly with Miller and Green kind of setting the tone there. And now Mac is 8-2 against UConn. And Creighton has held them under 70 in every single game in regulation. The only time they topped that point was the first game when UConn rejoined the league, and that went to overtime. And Creighton won that 76-74, and UConn scored 8 points in overtime. So it was only 66 in regulation. So just a testament to Greg McDermott and his staff and their preparation and his team's ability to execute a game plan, because that's been an elite UConn offense the entire time. They were top 30 nationally the first 2 years. They were top 10 offensively the last 2 years, and this year they were top 20 as well. So just a credit to Creighton and what they've done. It's I mean, UConn has as many wins in the national championship game than they have against Creighton over since they've rejoined the Big East. It's just kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, that 2-8 record for Dan Hurley against Creighton as a head coach there in Stores, that's his worst record against any opponent. So something about what McDermott does and that game plan that he can execute with his team just, I don't know, does something to UConn every time.
Yeah, and of course, Ryan Kalkbrenner has played in all of those games. He was just a backup that first season, so you can't put it all on him. But yeah, I think it's safe to say that he's played a significant role in that.
Yeah, Hurley is not going to miss Ryan Kalkbrenner in the middle whatsoever. Jacob, I want to put some respect on Mason Miller's name, because I think people haven't seen it in the stat sheet, and that's sometimes all people look at. But his plus minus when he's on the floor and his defensive effort and what he does for this team, can you just I mean, put some respect on Mason Miller's name right now for the people that might be wondering?
Yeah, I think it's up to 67 or plus 67 in his last 90 minutes, something like that, just off the top of my head. It's not necessarily like that isn't a reflection of him playing great necessarily. And I know they're going to need more from him down the stretch than what they've gotten, but for whatever reason, over the last 6-7 games here, they played some of their best basketball with Miller on the court. And part of that is him doing his job. Part of that is just everybody else being able to play well around him when he's out there. He offers something different than Jason Green does at that spot in terms of spacing. Teams are still guarding him, and that creates more room for everybody else to go to work. He knows where he needs to be on both ends of the floor, doesn't make many mistakes, and he's become one of their better players at chasing guys off screens and staying attached. which is a huge improvement for him throughout his career, where he's able to kind of right now he's more of a defensive specialist for this team because the last couple of games he's 0 for 1, I think, in the last 2 games from the field after kind of breaking loose and hitting a couple of threes against Providence. So yeah, it's a credit to Creighton as a whole, and for Mason for continuing to work hard and doing his job even when things maybe haven't been going the way that he would have hoped individually.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's flip over to the DePaul matchup. 73-49 victory, again, on the road for the Blue Jays. They could have had a little hangover from the UConn game, did not whatsoever. Their focus, they were locked in. Greg McDermott was very complimentary of the focus, and I think that says a lot about this team as well.
Yeah, and they were up 12 at halftime despite not shooting the ball well at all, and then just blew the game open. They weren't shooting the three well, so they just stopped taking threes. They took 4 of them in the second half. They just continued to pound the ball inside, get to the rim all game long, and they made 12 of their first 13 two-pointers in the second half before the starters sat down for good. Just kind of pointing to the level of execution that they're able to do. And this is a different DePaul team. They're much better than they were under the last few years under Tony Stubblefield. But Creighton made them look like that same team on Tuesday night. So that was a credit to, like you said, Creighton's readiness and willingness to go out and do what they need to do. And this is exactly what Creighton needed out of this game. They had all 13 guys get on the court. 11 of them scored, and the other 2 that didn't score combined for 4 assists between them. Creighton had 19 assists on 25 field goals, and 10 different guys had at least 1 assist. Mm-hmm. And that's despite only shooting 6 of 19 from 3. But they went 19 of 29 inside the arc, 17 of 22 from the line, and they had 7 dunks. So again, it's just Creighton asserted its will, dominated that game on both ends of the floor, and they were able to get their veterans some early rest. Nobody played more than 30 minutes. I think Kalkbrenner only played 25, Ashworth 27, which is huge for this point in the season where you kind of were banking just close to 40 minutes for those guys on a nightly basis. So kind of stealing them some rest, especially now with the few days off to get ready for Saturday, is huge at this point in the season. We saw Ashworth's double-digit streak end at 22 games. He only scored 9, but I think that's okay. Creighton's fine with that because they got guys like Sammy Osmani, a chance to get out and play. And he had an assist, a rebound, and a bucket, which Wintrust Arena is 50 miles away from his high school. So it was good to see a guy that went through an injury last year that kept him out for the whole year, decided to come back for his 5th year. And to go have a moment like that where he can go out there and just kind of have fun and play back in his home area was huge. Josh Townley-Thomas got his first career points as well late in that game, and you saw the bench just going nuts when those guys were making plays. So that's always fun when you can get the guys that put in work that don't necessarily get to see the rewards on the court very often, a chance to go out there and have some fun. And then you got 15 minutes for Fedor Zugic as well. Scored 8 points, had a couple of assists. So again, every minute you can get for him is big for this team heading into the stretch run of the season.
And looking at the Big East standings, I mean, Creighton's firmly back in that race for trying to be one of those top 2 teams and hopefully have a good position there in New York City come March. But what do you think of that Big East race and where it's at now? Because it's looking like a lot more Big East teams will be playing in March Madness now.
Yeah, Creighton 6-2 now in conference play, tied for UConn in 3rd place now. Unfortunately, in terms of just the conference depth and making the tournament, Xavier was not able to finish it off against St. John's last night. So then St. John's is now alone in 1st place. Marquette's a half game back of them, and then Creighton and UConn with 2 losses are next up. So they're all kind of bunched up together there. Xavier probably needed to get that win to make a tournament case for them. They were kind of in that mid-tier, and getting the big win was against Marquette. I think they got the win. So they needed that to kind of push themselves back up. So now we're still looking at UConn, Marquette, Creighton, and St. John's as kind of the top of the Big East. And the difference is Creighton's faced the toughest schedule so far of that group. They've played the most road matches. They've already gone to Marquette and UConn, and they won one of those games. Now those teams have to come back to Omaha. So Creighton is very much alive in this race, which I don't think anybody would have expected after that Georgetown game.
No, not at all. All right, well, looking ahead, Pink Out game versus Seton Hall on Saturday, and that is a doubleheader. We'll touch on the women's side here in just a little bit, but Seton Hall team that's 170th in KenPom, last of the Big East teams. It's a game you just got to take care of business for the Blue Jays.
Yep, Seton Hall they're 1-7 in conference play. They are in a bad place. You've got Rick Pitino out there telling people, "Hey, don't blame Shaheen Holloway. He just doesn't have any money." That's why they were able to steal his best player in Kadari Richmond to head to Richmond or to head to St. John's. So yes, Seton Hall is not in a good place right now, and this is another game where, especially at home, especially on a day like Saturday where that arena is going to be filled with pink. There's going to be emotions running high. It's another chance to show their maturity and to show their ability to take care of business, because this is not a game where you can afford to mess around. You got to deal with Isaiah Coleman, 6'5" guard, averaging almost 16 points, 5 boards a game. But outside of that, there's not a whole lot of firepower there. So again, it's a game that Creighton should be heavily favored and should come out and take care of business.
All right, well, on the women's side, they just keep on rolling. 92-71 win over DePaul at home. A team that's undefeated in the Big East, and there's only 2 of them left, and they'll face the other one here on Saturday as well. But starting with that DePaul win, Jacob, what did you see out of that one?
Well, they were down 23-21 after the first quarter, and then went 71-48 the rest of the way. So I figured some things out there. Obviously put up 92 points, which great to see the offense click to that degree. 4 in double figures, and that doesn't include Morgan Molly, who had been on an absolute heater. So it was good to get everybody else involved. I think probably the most important thing there is that Lauren Jensen kind of broke out of the slump that she had been in, went off for 20 points on 67% shooting, had 6 boards and 6 assists as well. They got double figures from Keani Lockett and Kennedy Townsend. But Molly Mogensen led the way, 21 points and 6 assists. And we'll talk about her more here in a bit.
Yeah, and then 62-53 win at Butler with Molly and Jensen both going off. What did you like out of that? And Molly's 24 points, kind of a bounce back game for her.
Yeah, those two outscored Butler 36-32 on their own after 3 quarters. And then Butler kind of went on a run in the fourth quarter to close it down and make it a little less comfortable. But I think 7 points was the closest they got. And then Creighton was able to close it out. Molly had 24. Jensen had 22, 5 assists and 3 boards. And then Mogensen again scored double figures with 11 points, 3 assists, no turnovers. So you look at the last 3 games, and Mogensen is averaging just under 17 points a game, shooting over 51% from the field, 43% from 3, hit all her free throws, and with a 5-to-1 assist to turnover ratio during that stretch. So she is playing at a high level, and that is what Creighton absolutely needs. You need Morgan, you need Jensen, and you need Mogensen all playing really well to have a chance on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, playing the number 6 UConn team and obviously another squad that's unbeaten in the Big East. Could it be the day that Creighton gets its first victory ever against the Huskies? I think it would be the day to do it. It's a pink out inside CHI Health Center. It's a doubleheader. There's going to be a ton of energy. They should break the attendance record at home for a Creighton women's basketball game. Jacob, what's your take on the Huskies this season and the challenge ahead?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of what that crowd looks like, what the attendance is, obviously, with the kind of doubling up with the men's game at 12:30 and then the women at 4:30. We'll see. Hopefully, a lot of people are planning to attend both games there and kind of show some support because this, I think, deserves to be a really showcase game for the Big East right now. Obviously, UConn's at another level compared to what Creighton's accomplished at this point, but they're both teams have made it to this point undefeated in league play. Fortunately, UConn is coming off a 96-36 win over Seton Hall on Sunday. So that was certainly eyebrow raising. This UConn team is very good when healthy, and they're healthier now than they have been for much of the last few years. So It's going to be a tough one. Creighton's going to have to play their absolute best, but I think you feel good about the way that Molly and Jensen have been playing, and then the team around them with their ability to step up.
Well, huge day on Saturday with both the men and women competing. Jacob, thanks so much for the time, and thank you all for watching. We'll talk to you next time on Bluejay Breakdown.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.